Dudes to Dads is a podcast to help men understand and navigate the transition of being a single dude into a family man. How do we make sense of it all? Well, we probably won't be able to, but let's go ahead and have some fun trying. And we are back.
We are back.
I'm Jason Kreidman.
I am Alan Bush.
And this is Dudes to Dads, episode 99.
99.
And Alan, boy, do we have a show for you today.
Is it 9 packed of 9 things?
No.
Okay.
You know what? I didn't even think of that. Let's go ahead and go back. We'll re-record this.
Right. Just rewrite the whole episode.
Making me feel insufficient right off the bat. You know, in those old episodes when we used to have segments, I would like tie everything in and feel so good about it. And then you just knock me back down.
I can kick you down enough.
You know what in fact, what just happened is perfect for this topic.
Okay.
The topic is called teaching our kids respect.
Respect.
Respecting my authority.
Respect my authority. For the South Park fans out there.
Yes, teaching our kids respect.
Yeah.
It's very close to manners.
Yeah.
Which we did in a recent episode.
It's like a sibling of manners.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I think there's, teaching our kids respect for people, for places, for things, and even themselves.
Sure.
All of them are crucial.
Yeah.
So I came up with some tips on how we can teach our kids respect.
Okay.
And that's what we're going to review.
Cool.
Ready?
Yeah, ready.
Before we do that, though, let's tell everyone how to get a hold of us.
Podcast at dudestodads.com or an email.
That's right.
Yeah. Twitter, dudestodads, at dudestodads, I should say. Facebook, dudestodads.com. iTunes and Stitcher. Leave reviews right now. Go leave a review right now. It'd be awesome. And YouTube as well.
All right. Awesome. First one. So create a house or family rule chart.
Okay. I'm glad you got to that one.
Yeah.
You said, create a house.
Well, create family rules, basically.
Okay.
That are the house rules or the family rules. That's basically what I was saying. You want to agree on how you guys want to handle this with your spouse or something, or agree on that first. But basically, it's really important that you guys are on the same page of how you're going to teach your kids respect and the levels of things that you do. So one of the things you can do is make a chart of the family rules. And so, for example, that could be, 1, be nice to each other, talk with a calm voice, whatever those things that you were saying about that are respectful, say please and thank you, that kind of stuff. And you want to include your child in that process as well, so that they can feel like they're a part of it, saying, okay, so what are some other things we do to, be respectful? Because a huge part of it is manners and that kind of stuff. So that's an important thing, is sort of create the environment, create those rules and what those things are. Then the second element is set realistic expectations.
Yeah.
So, it's really easy to overreact on things.
Sure.
So you really want to be careful not to overreact. If your child does something that you feel is disrespectful, and that could be to you, to somebody else, whatever the situation is, it's okay. You want to call them out on it, but you want to be calm. You don't want to overreact to it. And so, that can be a problem. So there's just really no need to overreact. So let's say, as an example, your child is sitting there and they don't say please, or they don't say thank you or something like that. And you're like, hey, why didn't you say thank you? There's just levels of like how upset you should get.
Sure.
And this is not a scenario that's going to help do that.
Yeah, exactly. Be patient.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah. So set the realistic expectations about, your level of what you think respect is with, how old they are and what they're still learning and doing all of that. So you've got to have those expectations in mind.
Right, right.
Because what we're talking about here is teaching our kids respect at a fairly young age. We're talking about from toddler, up to when they begin to understand what you're talking about. That's kind of what we're talking about, the age to do that. It's important to teach them throughout their life. And some people, if we don't do it early enough, which we'll talk about, in fact, that's the next tip, do it when they're young. So you really want to deal with this, making these suggestions and shaping this when they are young, because the longer that you're going to wait, the more difficult it's going to be to overcome it and correct the behavior.
Yeah.
So That's like I said, toddler, is fine. So one of the things to do is to start with, there's another tip, start with manners. That's a way to start with teaching them respect.
Sure.
So, the pleases and thank yous when they're really young.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it was 48 is the episode we have about manners that they can go through and learn how to teach your kid about manners. So that's a good place to start when they're very young and with what respect is about.
Right.
A big part of it is manners. An important one that it's a common theme with everything we do is to model respectful behavior.
Yeah. Like you said, monkey see, monkey do.
Absolutely.
And generally speaking, the good traits also, as well as the bad traits, carry over.
So if they're yelling at you and you're feeling that's disrespectful, you don't yell back.
Right.
That's teaching them the exact opposite of what it is that, you don't want to teach them. You don't want them yelling at you. You don't yell back.
I had a roommate in college, and it wasn't yelling. We were talking. We were getting hyped up about what we were discussing, and I was getting very more animated and louder as we were talking, and he'd go, okay. And it just made you shut everything down. Like, yeah, I am talking very loud right now. Sorry.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm guilty of that. When my children get riled up, I do too, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So then I make it a very conscious decision. In fact, my daughter got really upset the other day and raised her voice and was really upset. And I basically was just, hey, I'm not talking to you like that. We don't need to talk to each other like that. What's going on? What's the issue? And they want to engage in that, like yelling and stuff. And it immediately, like you said, you talk in a softer voice, it brings the level down.
Yeah.
There's nothing to argue with.
Right.
So it's just not as much fun.
I'm not feeding that fire.
Right. So you want to be firm and you want to be respectful when you're talking, but you also want to be calm. So it's a real important thing to just to model that behavior. You're going to also, as part of modeling, you want to be sure to listen to them and be interested in what they are talking about.
Right.
So, that's a very important aspect is they want to feel like they're being listened to, and that they're being respected. It's, that we give respect when we feel like we're getting it.
Right.
It's a common
yeah,
theme.
absolutely. Yeah.
And so then you're going to want to model the behavior by showing respect for others. So that is your spouse, them, people around you, friends, and also when you're around town, like you're in a restaurant or you're in a store or whatever, is being respectful and saying thank you or please, excuse me, and using manners and that kind of stuff. That's a really, really important aspect of it. So, so modeling the behavior, I'd probably say is the number one thing.
Right. Yeah.
Probably the number one tip we can do.
Yeah.
Next thing is apologize when you mess up. So one of the things is you're going to mess up. You're going to get upset. You're going to probably be disrespectful towards them. It just happens. We all do it.
All make mistakes.
It's important that they see you recognize that you weren't being respectful and that you have an opportunity to fix it.
Right.
That they have that second chance. And so that's where you can model that behavior again. And when you mess up and you get upset, that's okay. It's going to happen. But then going back and saying, you know what? I was really disrespectful towards you there and I could have handled it better. I should have done this, and tell them what you should have done and how you should have done it.
Right.
And kids are very, empathetic and very
sure.
They're like, okay, most of the time.
Right.
And when you're teaching them that.
Yeah, for sure.
Another tip, do not take it personally. So, we as adults have a tendency to take things so personally.
When they're being disrespectful.
When they're being disrespectful, we feel like it is, it's aimed at us and they've targeted us and they want to piss us off. Like that's really what we often think.
Isn't that what it is?
Not until they're older.
Yeah.
When they are young, teenagers is a whole different thing. But when they are young, they're not really doing it to get at you or just, to make you upset or to disrespect you specifically. You want to act calmly. You don't necessarily ignore it. You're not ignoring it, but like as we talked about the other things, you model the behavior, be calm, do that kind of stuff. You just cannot take it personally. And that's often what escalates us being upset.
Sure.
So when a child yells back, I say yells back because we yell.
Because we're yelling, yeah.
Let's say you're not yelling. That was a mistake by me.
Slip.
When a child yells, you're not yelling, but they get upset and they yell and they're being disrespectful and they may say some really mean things. You can't take it personally. And that's a really hard thing to do.
Right.
Because that's our first trigger, is immediately taking that personally. Like, well, how could you talk to me like that?
Yeah.
That's
I'm your father.
Right. Yeah.
Luke.
Totally. So just don't take it personally. Okay.
Right.
Another one, follow through.
Yeah.
You have to follow through with what you say.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you're going to make a consequence for a behavior, you have to follow through.
Yeah.
So as an example, maybe you're at a restaurant and you're telling your children, hey, if you don't behave, like if you're not sitting down on your chair, we're going to have to leave. Right. Maybe they keep getting up and walking around and doing something disrespectful, whatever, throwing something, who knows?
Yeah.
You're going to have to follow through. So you give them a warning and you say, hey, this is the last warning. If this happens, we're going to have to leave because we're not allowed to act like this. This is not how we act.
Right.
And then you have to get up and walk out. Mm-hmm. Leave.
Sure.
It's really hard to do, but it's got to be done.
Yeah.
I recall doing this when my son was really, really young. And I look back now, I don't even think he understood what he was doing.
Right.
Like it was that young.
Yeah. Yeah.
And saying, well, we can't be, we were at a restaurant and my wife and I was like, we had not gone out that much. And we were just like, I was so embarrassed of like, he was just acting up. I mean, he was so young. Like,
yeah.
Who knows how old he was. And just not even realizing that's like, that's his age. It was tired, whatever it was that we brought him out late or something. So we followed through though. We said, hey, we're not going to be able to stay here because you can't yell or you can't do whatever he was doing. And so we left.
Yeah.
Hey, let's get it to go. Let's go. Let's leave.
Yeah.
I don't think that was actually a teaching moment. We probably thought it was. So there's a certain level or age, I should say, when they really start to comprehend stuff like that.
Sure.
So you don't want to waste it on you might have to go just because it is embarrassing and the child doesn't have the control.
They're causing a ruckus.
But if you've got a 2.5 to 3-year-old and they're not sitting in their chair, that's common.
Yeah.
Like that's what they do.
Right.
Like, especially if they're tired or whatever. Yeah. I mean, hungry, tired, whatever. So you've got to be prepared for that. So you got to read, or listen to one of our other episodes about entertaining them while you're at a restaurant. Yeah. Take the chopsticks, tic-tac-toe. So that's important though. But you have to follow through with whatever you're talking about.
Right.
Whether it's a threat or you talk about something. That's just an important parenting thing. Follow through. The next tip, your child does not have to be your best friend.
Right.
So oftentimes parents will take whatever's being thrown at them or abuse or something like that because they don't want to upset the child or they want the child to like them.
Right.
I know it sounds weird, but it's true.
No, it's true. Yeah.
And so they want to be their friend. And so, they don't want the child to quote hate them and think of them negatively. Well, that's too bad. Like that's not what
the child's not going to hate you.
No, the child is not going to hate you. What the child's going to do is learn to respect you, exactly. Which is the whole purpose of this. And we're teaching them respect. Exactly. So you have to be on it. You have to be firm about it, and you've got to teach them that respect. I think I've seen that kind of thing happen where, the children, even as they get a little bit older, will continue to disrespect their parents.
Yeah.
And that's partly because just the parents allow them to do it.
I know. It bugs me. I'm like, you're allowing this to happen.
Absolutely.
The reason why your kid's acting up this way this far along.
Absolutely.
It's just your fault.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Parents have to take responsibility for anybody who's under, 10, 11 years old and how they're acting.
Yeah.
They have to take responsibility for it, that they're not doing what they could be doing to curb the behavior.
Right.
And part of it is we don't know what to do. You think that you're doing the right thing or that you love the child and that you're acting a certain way, which is trying to do something. And quite frankly, you just don't know,
right.
And that's the whole point of this podcast. It's the whole point of, reading and learning online and doing that stuff. Go to a parenting class, do whatever, make your life a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. That, teaching your children how to respect you, how to respect the people around them, how to respect themselves. It's a real crucial life element.
Yeah.
Like it really is.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you have to start early so that they become normal people.
Yeah.
And they're very, they're contributing members of society, and that
Right.
they're moral and all these kinds of things. And this is all like kind of the foundation is respect.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the next one is live with integrity and honesty.
Yeah.
So these are the two things that I pulled out that I thought were probably the most important elements of respect.
Yeah.
And teaching that the element of respect is living with integrity and living with and being honest.
Sure.
So, it goes along with modeling the behavior. I think they're just both foundations for building a solid character.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to help them later on in life getting anywhere. If you have a certain amount of integrity and honesty, you're going to get places.
Right.
That's
how you begin to learn respect and be respectful is by showing those attributes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the last item is to reinforce the respectful behavior. So when it is positive and you see something being done that is good, reinforce that behavior, maybe praise them, and be specific with like what exactly they did and why it was good.
Right.
So, hey, I saw that, you helped that person over there. That was really excellent. You should be proud of yourself. Something like that. Yeah. Or, hey, when we were at the restaurant and you said thank you to the people on the way out, that was really respectful of you.
Yeah.
Whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
And just giving them that praise and sort of reaffirming that behavior. So. So these are just some quick tips. It's a quick one tonight.
Yeah, it's really great.
But I think it's important for us to establish that, teaching our kids respect is just a really important element of parenting.
Yeah.
And if you guys,
I don't like disrespectful kids, to be honest with you.
No.
Because I know it's the parents' fault.
Right.
And it's like, I can't do anything about it because it's a kid. They don't know. They know.
You can talk, and it's hard to talk to the parent.
Right. Yeah. It's just so I'm glad you're covering this because it's really important that they start doing this when they're young, teaching them how to be respectful. And nothing makes me feel better than a really respectful kid.
Yeah. And a lot of times you'll hear parents say like, gosh, my kids are so disrespectful. Well, let's talk honestly.
Yeah. Where are they learning this from?
You have to take a look at yourself.
Sure.
And say, am I doing everything that I can to teach my kids what's right and what's wrong?
Yeah.
And the reality is that if you have disrespectful kids, you probably did not teach them properly.
Right.
And you may not have the skills to do that. And so go get help.
Yeah.
Get help doing it. Read. Like I said, go to a parenting class. Listen to the podcasts, listen to other podcasts,
Sure.
Do what you can to educate yourself and implement these things because this is not we don't just know this stuff. I didn't just pull all of this out, out of nowhere. It's like part of it is, okay, there's some elements that we understand and that we learn. And then the other part is learning it, going out and finding resources to sort of understand what needs to be done to do this.
Right.
So, I think that's part of it is just being resourceful and the fact that you can take responsibility for the fact that as a dad, we want to teach our kids respect. You have to give them that respect and then teach them these various elements to do that.
For sure.
So,
yeah.
If you guys have any tips on how to teach your kid respect or things that have worked for you, we'd love to hear feedback. Podcast at dudestodads.com. And Alan, where else can they find us?
Twitter at dudestodads, Facebook dudestodads.com. And you can go to YouTube and Dad University, which we will discover a little bit later in episodes what that means. And also iTunes and Stitcher. Awesome. Really important. 5-star reviews. Leave some comments and feedback, preferably.
We love those reviews.
Oh, yeah. And just subscribe, and it helps the show along and gets up in the rankings. So it really just helps everything out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You know what else would be interesting? People from outside the United States.
Yeah, I want to hear from more like European.
It's always cool
South
when
American
we get notes and we get emails
Asian,
from that and like the differences of how the perspectives are, because we're sort of in our own little world here.
Yeah, for sure.
Not only just within the United States, but in Southern California. So it's like its own bubble.
Yeah.
But how, other countries teach respect would be really, really interesting. And the different levels of things of, different cultures and different countries have different nuances as it comes to is about it. Respect.
Like bow, in certain countries, bowing is a thing. Certain countries, a handshake maybe not be the best sign to do things. Right. So, yeah, I'd be interested in hearing more about
That's cool.
that. Yeah.
All right. So with that, Alan, thank you.
Thank you.
And we will see you next time.
See you next time.